Welcome to The Wave.
Alright, hello everybody, this is Mark. Welcome to the first ever mix tutorial by The Wave Audio Production Studios. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time with a bunch of nonsense. We are going to kind of just jump right into it. Believe it or not, we get to start off with something all too classic in this industry for a mix engineer, which are problems to fix. We've got a system we're working on between me and my assistant mix engineer, and there are still some things to smooth out, it looks like, and I left some information out in the instructions for him. So we'll get that taken care of for future mixes. The first thing I want to do is thank Bobby Dean from Image of Deceit. He has volunteered and allowed us to use this song, Into the Void. It's one of his up-and-coming tracks, and he is totally cool with me taking you guys through every single step of the mixing process. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and go through what I'm using a little bit here, just so you can kind of know my basic setup. I am using Ableton Live 11 Suite, a Scarlett 18 i20 audio interface, and then today I'm actually going to be mixing in my Sennheiser 280 Pro headphones, and everything else is pretty self-explanatory. The multi-tracks came from Bobby himself. He sent them over, I downloaded them, unzipped them, and then I always start off with drums, so that is where we are. Let's start with processing the drums. So the first thing that I always do is going to be organized, period. Usually my mix process starts with the drums, moves on to the bass guitar for live instrument mixes, then moves on to the rhythm and lead guitars, and then finally synth and vocals in that order. Today we're going to be focusing on the drum track for Into the Void, and I'm going to start off with simply placing everything where it needs to go. The first thing I'm going to do is find the kick drum. So here we go. We've got our kick drum. Let's move it up to the top. Next thing I'm going to look for is the snare. We got our snare. We want to go hi-hats next. Open and closed. Sometimes you'll get a hi-hat open, hi-hat closed track. It really depends on whether live drums were recorded or whether you were sent samples. In this case, let's see, it looks like we just have one hi-hat track. From here, I like to go toms, so let's bring tom 1 under the hi-hat, tom 2 under that, and then we have the floor tom, and we should be at our cymbals. We are. Okay, let me check something out really quick. Right, left, right, right. I'll bring the left one up here, and that keeps all three of my rights over here. And I'm cool with the order they're in, so that's fine. All right, we're good with the order of our drum kit from top to bottom in the mix. Now, as I go through and add elements, I will add them under the drum kit. I like to have my drum kit at the top in my drum kit order here, kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, and then remaining cymbals after, going from top left to bottom right. And then one of the most important parts of this, and make sure you get them all, you want to click, highlight, create a group. In some of my other videos, I'm going to be using Pro Tools. I will even use Logic if it's requested, if there are any users out there that really, really like it. I'm just not a humongous fan, so we started in Ableton. I will definitely be switching over to Pro Tools at certain points as other mixes come in for this. But in Ableton, what I do to add subgroups is create a group track and then name it drums. So this would be the equivalent in Pro Tools or Reaper of a subgroup that encompasses all your tracks, and then you physically route to the master fader. Okay, the other thing I want to do, because it's just going to annoy the hell out of me, I'm going to change this to bright red, and then I'm going to come up here, change all the clips to bright red. And then I always make my sub like a weird shade of whatever color I'm using. So let's see what this looks like. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay, awesome. So we are here, and we have got all the drums in order, and now we are ready to start gain staging these drums. So in Pro Tools, you have an audio suite, and you have an analyzation tool, a gain analyzation tool. And it actually shows you a numerical value of where your peaks are across that whole track. And you can make gain adjustments based on that, right? Here, what we are going to use, and I know already that it is not the ideal way to gain stage, but I am going to use the meter on my faders up here. I'm going to gain stage everything to -6 dB. That's where I want all of these tracks coming in. Some of them, again, it's not a perfect world. You're going to get tracks that don't have enough to get there. That's okay. Just get them audible, and then if you need to print, you can print. And if you're good to go, you're good to go. But let's go ahead and start. I'm going to solo out the kick here. Let's make sure we can hear it. Oh, yeah, I'm going to cut that up a little bit in my headphones. And let's zoom in. Ooh, how do I forget about this? This is an Ableton-specific thing, and I'm clicking in here to make sure that warp is off on all of these clips before I do this next thing. Yep. We always want to work to some sort of a grid when we're in here. And Ableton has an awesome function to where usually it's standard that the clips come with warp on, and if you mess with the grid at all, it warps your tracks too. We don't want that in this case. We know that the BPM here is 100, so I'm going to bring everything back to 100 so that our grid is accurate, and then I'm going to look at it just to make sure that it looks right. It does look right. Okay, awesome. Back to gain staging. So we're going here. Boom. We're coming in right at about -18. So I'm going to double click here. I'm going to raise it on up. Okay. Boom. We're at -6. Bam. Done. On to the next one. This is going to be our snare track. Double click in here so I can get my gain adjustment down here. All right, we're coming in at right under -12. So I'm going to ease it up till we are right at -6. Boom. Done. Next. All right, we got a cymbal here. So this is going to be one of those ones. Let me go. You guys can't see the mixing window, so let me make sure you can see everything I'm doing. Actually, hold on a sec. Yeah, there we go. Wow. All right, so we are indeed on the hi-hat track here. And this is super important. Let me tell you where this is coming in at. So this is coming in under -36 dB. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to jack it probably close to all the way up. Yeah. All right, that gives me right under -12. I'm going to back off just a hair so that we don't get any artifactual things happening here. So this, again, not ideal, but it is workable. You can get it to a volume where it's audible, and then after we get done gain staging, we're going to drop all the faders and bring in our rough leveling mix, and we should be okay. If it is crazy bad, like if you go all the way up in gain and you are not able to get up to like -12, or let's say you're coming in under -18, it would probably be better to just ask for another sample at that point. I think what we've got going on here is I do get a drum sample pack from this client, so I'm dealing with that. But yeah, I'd say that is a safe rule of thumb. If you're gain staging, you crank it all the way up, and it doesn't come in anywhere near 6, like -18 or below. -12, I think we're going to be okay. Definitely ask for more audio from your client, because it will become hard to get everything to be audible and cut through in the mix if you don't. Yes, there are definitely last-minute EQ tricks you can do and then print and do it again and print, but I think we're close enough to get there. That brings me to another point here about gain staging. Gain staging is not moving the fade. When you're gain staging, you don't want any of your faders to move at all. They should stay at unity gain at the 0 point, and you are going to make your audio file louder by clicking here and using this gain adjustment down here. It's also part of the utility. I think there's a gain utility in Ableton that you can use. But what it does is it gets your signal stronger, and you still have full control and full use of your fader. That is the importance of gain staging. And you're going to gain stage throughout the whole mixing process, too, if you're doing it right. So definitely something you want to get used to. Let's solo out Tom 1. This one is going to be... All right, so if you got a track where some of the stuff isn't used a lot, solo out what you're going to listen to, put a small loop on there, and then, oh wow, even smaller loop. Forgot how much I was zoomed out. Then we can come in here and gain stage this thing. Let's make sure we've got the right gain adjustment up. Let's make sure we're starting in the right place. All right, this one is coming in at about -18 for the starting point. About -12 there. Almost there. All right. Welcome aboard, everybody. We have our second problem. Unless it's the length of the loop. Let's see. All right, it was false alarm. So I had the loop set to here or something, and I was hearing that hard clip there at the end, that little click noise when it was starting over. I thought maybe we need to put a fade in. This one's gain staged, unsolo, solo the next time. Pull up my fader, my gain adjustment, and let's see where we're starting at here. Right under -12. Bring it up some. Okay, bring it up a little more. All right. And y'all are probably thinking, man, with everything at -6, when you hit play, it is going to sound like garbage. And you're right, it is going to sound like garbage. That's not the point of gain staging. Boom. All right, we're right under -6 right here. I think... yeah, I'm going to call that good. Unsolo, onto the floor tom. Make sure we got the right gain adjustment up, coming in way low, in between 12 and 18. So let's just bring it on in. Yep. Okay, I'm going to put a little more on it. Okay, we're good. Down to the crash. This one's coming in about -32. So we are probably going to max this out or get close to it. Oh yeah, right now we're at -16, -12. So we're not going to ask for another sample. We actually got up to like -8. So -10, -8. We should be okay there. Next is the right side China cymbal. This is going to be another one. It starts at, where are we at here? Oh, well, let me solo it. Oh, nope. Got to find it again. Here we go. Yeah, coming in like -26. Okay, let's come down here. Let's bring that on up. Coming up closer to the top, we are looking at -13 right now. Okay, I'm going to just leave it kind of up here near the top. Let's see. Yeah, about -7, -8. That's fine with me. Let's move on to the crash. That section's not going to work, so let's slide it on down a little bit. All right, starting at -30. Just bring her way on up here. All right, we're coming in about -8. That's fine. Let's go down here to the last item and the last track in our drum subgroup, the right side ride. Now, I do believe we are going to need to find a spot, and it is kind of common to get a track with nothing on it. So let me max this out, and see if we really do. No, there is something down here. Okay, so we do have a section that has some rides. All right, so this is coming in at -24. Command T in Ableton creates you a new track. We want all our drums to be bright red, so I'm going to go ahead and color it. If you have it colored in Ableton before your clip shows up, it'll go ahead and color your clip too. So I try to make it the first thing I do, but sometimes I get crazy into it. What we're going to do here, and I got to see if I remember how to do this in Ableton. So we're definitely going to record arm this track, and we definitely want our input to be from 11 ride right. We're going to unsolo it. Matter of fact, I'm going to just solo them both. Make sure that it's just them. Yep. Okay, great. We're record arm down here. The input signal should be coming from ride right. Let's see if I get this right the first time here, but we'll see. And then let's see here. So output, though. Yeah, all right, let's run it. We've got a pre-roll in here. All right, it is working. We're going to let it print out. Make sure it's the only spot in the song. Yep. Make sure to get the whole transient. All right, there's nothing in the song that's going to last longer than that. Bam. Here's what we're going to do here. We're going to cut this track completely off. Unsolo these. We're going to make it small. And then I'm going to throw it up here where I like to throw things that I don't use. I haven't figured out the best way in Ableton to do that yet. I can hide and make things inactive in Pro Tools. But I like the way Ableton functions, and I like operating in here. So I'm kind of making a makeshift workaround way. I mute them out, cut them off, send them up here, and let them hang out until I either need to use them for something else or they just stay there and get deleted before the end of the song. So what I did was I took that audio signal that I maxed out and I printed it onto another track. And the reason that I did that is because that signal is now louder, but it was louder. It was as loud as I could get it, moving this gain adjustment here and not moving the fader. So by printing it to another track, I got that end state loudness with more gain control here now, so I can reboost. And my fader is still at 0. So what it did do is it spit me out a stereo track instead of a mono track. In this case, that's okay, because this was our right side ride. Let me go ahead and rename this. Right ride print. And we already know that the ride symbol, I'm not going to do it right now because I do want to have sessions later where I show the panning method and things like that. Actually, here in a little bit, I will probably pull the mix window down and we'll go through the panning close to last on this whole process. But anyway, we've got a stereo track. In Pro Tools, you actually get stereo panning knobs, which is really nice to take advantage of. Here, I don't have those, but I can still pan all the way to the right and we'll be fine. We'll be good to go. It may take a little bit more fader manipulation at the end of the day, but it still should work just fine. Let's go ahead and gain stage this. Let me cut our loop off. Solo it. All right, so now we're coming in right under -24. Bring it on up. Good, okay, we're coming in right about -8, and it's a stereo track, so I'm not upset with that. All right, we now have a fully gain staged drum kit. Everything is coming in at very close to the same level across the board. One thing that people would do at this stage, I'm not going to do it right now at this stage. We do see it here. and I will go ahead just because. Where if there isn't audio from the track being used, why have it in your session? And it's valid. You should definitely do that. However, we do have a lot of transients here, and I don't want to do that for the sake of just cleanup and cut into something that I want to use later and have extra clicks to try to stretch it back out. So we're going to leave it in for now, and we are going to move on to the basic balance of the drum kit. Let me pull down, get my windows swapped out here. Small mixer window, small edit window. All right, sweet. Fun part, right? First thing we're going to do, bam, straight down to 0. If you had your whole session in here, you would solo out the drum subgroup, and then you would only hear drums. You can bring your drums in. Do that same thing down every group. I chose to do this in sections so that we could really focus. You know what? I chose to do this because the question that every mix engineer gets asked is about the sauce. Is what is that secret sauce that you put on your mixes to make them sound awesome? And I've got to tell you, through many, many years of playing music in bands, playing shows live, trying to produce my own music from watching YouTube videos, and then now getting an associate's degree and in 2 months a bachelor's degree in audio production, the sauce is in the methodology. It's in the methodical process that you mix. You don't want to skip any steps. You don't want to not do something because you think that move doesn't matter based on the specifics of that track. Just do it. Just make sure you always do everything you know you're supposed to do. Hopefully we're going to cover a lot of that in here. And then after you've done the basic methodical things, you are now free to mix the track and add your creative flair, right? It really is. Yeah, knowledge of how plugins work and knowledge of how EQ works definitely helps. Compression and EQ are going to be your best friend if you're just starting out doing this sort of thing. But really, the sauce really does lie within knowing your limits as far as what's placed upon you, streaming volumes. Are you wanting to be that type of producer that takes a loudness penalty every time, or do you want to just get it right? Things like that, you know. Do you want to have muddy mixes where you can't figure out what's going on because you're so far into things that you've done and not printed that it's literally impossible for you to go backwards and figure out what you did or didn't do to have a clearer, you know, crystal clear end result? Completely up to you, but we've dropped all our faders down. In this instance, we only have the drum kit in here, and we are now going to get a basic rough leveling of the drum kit. So I'm going to come out here to the beginning. We should start here and kick and snare and crash pretty much immediately. We have a left and a right crash. So let's go ahead and do that first. We're leaving our kick right up the middle every time. We're going to leave the snare right up the middle in this case. If we find that, I know from mixing this particular artist before that the vocals can get pretty extensive. So if we do find that there's just too much going up the middle, we may come back in here later and taper the snare off left or right a tiny bit in either direction. But for right now, we're going to leave it right up the middle. Let's see here. We've got our hi-hat. I am that guy. I am the guy that's going to pan like I'm sitting behind the kit. So we're going to put our hi-hat a little over here to the left. That later on it might come in, might go out. Right now it's going to sit right there. Tom number 1 is usually pretty close to right in front of you. I don't want it with the snare, so I'm going to take it a tiny bit to left of center. Tom 2 is going to go a tiny bit to the right of center. And then the floor tom is going to go a hefty little amount to the right there. Crash 17 left crash, bam, no. Over here, maybe even here. We'll feel that out as we're mixing too. What do we have next here? We've got the right China. It's going to come over here too. Where's the crash? I want to make sure that they're close, but not too crazy close. Okay, we're good. Let's see, right ride. Wait a minute. China right, crash right. Oh, wow, okay. We are very heavily loaded on the right here. Let's take the ride a little wider. Let's make sure that the crash is in a tiny bit. And then let's have our China in between those, maybe. Let's try that. We'll start there. All right. Now it's time to bring everything in. Before I hit play, I'm going to bring everything in to -6 dB. So, to be honest, I really like -8 to -10. I like having that headroom because I know that when I go at the end of this to throw a limiter and a mastering chain on, I am going to do certain things that I use that headroom for. You may not use it. You may be one of those producers or mix engineers that is all about smashing everything super hard into a limiter and mixing in a way that allows you to do that. I just don't like to do it that way. So we are going to bring everything in right to -6 dB just for the sake of trying to do things by the book. Kick drum. Oh, I got to grab the fader. Okay. All right, let me clarify too. When I say we're bringing everything into -6, I want my drum mix over here on the master to end somewhere around -6, really, really close to -6. So that's why you see it coming in a little low. That's what I've got going on over here. So let's go ahead and bring in the snare drum. Okay. Sounding okay there. What cymbal are we rocking with this? We have a crash cymbal. So let's go ahead and bring in the crash, the 17-inch crash on the left or the right? On the left. Oh, you know what? Hold on. We will bring it in. Okay, that's good for right now, but we really have the right side 18-inch crash that's performing most of the hits there, so we'll go ahead and bring that side in. Give that snare a little bit more. Okay, that's okay for the rough. So let's go ahead and find where other cymbals come in. All right, looks like next we're going to focus on some hi-hats. So let me go ahead and get this ready. All right, that is pretty good for the hi-hats. I'm happy with that. Oh yeah, happy with that for right now. And let's finish off these cymbals before we move into toms. All right, we've got one here. Let me go and set our loop. Cut our loop back on. This is going to be the right side China. Bring that down a bit. Okay, happy with that for the rough. Now let's go down to our stereo right ride track. And let's bring that on in here. Let me cut our loop off. Okay, pretty good there. All right, overall, I am pretty happy with the kick, snare, and cymbals. Let's go ahead and set our loop on the toms. This client is pretty sparse with the tom usage, so I usually end up having to set loops on the toms. No big deal, though. We will get through it. Let's bring in tom 1. It's going to be our slightly left pan tom. No, looks like I forgot to cut the loop back on. I'm actually going to keep that like right where I had it in the beginning. Okay, let's go ahead and let's bring in tom 2. It's going to be slightly right. That was tom 3. Raise tom 3 up a little. All right, now let's go check out how that sounds in an area where we are pretty tom heavy. All right, I think we're okay right there. Awesome. All right, good. So let's give it, let me find a nice juicy spot. Let's start right here and just give it a listen through all the way up until the point where the toms come in. Okay, we have our rough drum mix. All right. I wanted to keep this around 45 minutes, and we are at 33 minutes. So I'm gonna do kick and snare reverb, and then I think we're gonna end there for today. And I will pick back up on this drum mix this coming Saturday. I'm gonna be doing one of these every Saturday. I will try my very best to have it released on social media and YouTube by 7 p.m. Central. But if not, it should be short after. Things are definitely picking up over here, which is great. But it is putting a damper on time to be able to do stuff like this. So let's go ahead and let's get our reverb set up for the kick drum and the snare. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and use the stock Ableton reverb. Really, I may add a tiny, tiny bit of reverb to the toms. And I don't, because of how minimally I'm going to use it, I don't see the need to go crazy with the routing. In Pro Tools, we would be creating a bus. Here we have return tracks, which are similar. And then we'd be adding our reverb, getting crazy with the blend on pretty much everything. This makes it really simple. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to only keep my high cut on. And because my kick lives between 40 and 70, and my snare lives between, in this case, lives, I want to say, right up near 180. But you know what? Let's check it out. Let's throw an EQ on the snare track. Yeah. Okay, so we are definitely right around 180. So with that being said, coming over here to the reverb track, and I just reminded myself of something else we're going to do before we continue on here. I'm going to finish doing the reverb, and then we're going to move on to basic EQ. Sometimes when you get samples, they're already EQ'd. Sometimes they're not. We're going to check them all out. So here we've got reverb. We want the low to come down. Usually I start about 250 until I get near the end of the mix. We definitely want 100 is the tempo, so we'll go with a flat 1 second decay. We don't want the reverb muddying up anything, and we should be safe there. If we find that reverb tails are ending like way before the next beat in the song, then we'll adjust it, maybe make it a little bit longer. But we should be good there. We may even be pulling it back some. The snare drum gets a little fast towards the end of the song especially. So I think we're good here with the reverb. We've got it set right around 250. We've got well, you know what? Let's go a little closer to 4 seconds on the pre-delay. Because we do have a snare that we want to kind of echo a little bit, and we want that attack on the snare to fully get through before we start adding a reverb to it. So let's start there. Let's go ahead and play the snare for a second and see what we got here. I'm going to just jack it all the way up. No, we are not going to keep it here, but we are going to start it here. That is pre-delay. Definitely don't want that. I like that. I like that 378. We're going to keep it right there on the pre-delay. All right, size is fine. We're going to be blending anyways. Dry, wet, we always want that up at 100. We're not going to be doing any output gain staging here. We should be good to go. So let's go ahead and unsolo this. Come back to the beginning of our track and get a completely dry, completely wet. And you'll notice, too, it's not even completely turned on and fully 100% in the mix. It's not overbearing reverb. You don't have that high-end craziness going on. It's really more of a placement and a thickening agent for your drum kit. So I'm going to start it about here. Right about there. I hear it in the snare right about there to a point where I think it sounds great there, and I may adjust later, but right now I feel like if I go any higher, it'll just be too much in the mix. So we're going to leave the reverb there, and I'm going to swap our windows out one more time. All right. We're back down in here, and what we're going to do is we are going to throw... I'm going to want to look at this later. So you can also throw a spectrum analyzer or whatever you want on here so you can look at the waveform. I am just going to go ahead and throw a basic EQ8 onto every one of my drum kit tracks. Did I hit time 1? Yep. Did I? Oh, didn't want to do that. Did I hit time 2? Yes. Floor time, no. Crash. You know what I will do? I'm going to group these because I'm going to EQ them all the same. And I will throw an EQ on that group. All right, last thing we're going to do today is we're going to check our kick and our snare. That is where the pedal meets the metal here, and that is what we really need to be concerned about right off the bat in a mix. So... oh, yeah. Kick's going crazy. We're going to duplicate this track. Create another group. Called Kick Blend. Don't care that my K is not capital. And then, because I can already foresee this becoming a thing... we're going to duplicate the snare and create a snare group too. go ahead and get our color right. Oh. And we will call this the snare blend group, all inside of our drum subgroup. Why did you do that? Well, I did that because I'm going to come in here and do this. I'm going to make this a super duper steep low pass filter, and I'm going to bring it down to to give us a good starting point. I'm going to put us right here to pick up on the next session on the low side processing on the kick. If you noticed, there was also a lot of high side going on here, and we do want to blend in some of that for attack. So for the sake of having it ready, I'm going to throw us about right here so we can start there next time. We are going to be doing a very similar thing on the snare. Let's see where the snare is coming in. All right. Very important to have a low pass filter. We don't want anything from the snare, even that tiny bit. Yes, that tiny bit, we don't want it getting in to anywhere close to where our kick's going to be, and our root frequency is almost 200 hertz. I'm going to put a high-pass filter right at 100 hertz. I'm going to call it good for that. However, neither of our snares need it, so we are going to put that on both. Now what do we got to do? We got to do a low side and a high side. So I'm going to come in here, look at the waveform. All right, we'll start right there on that one. And I think it was about here. Start there on that one. All right, everybody, it has been really fun. Leave comments. Let me know if there's anything that you want to see specifically, any particular DAW that you want to work in. We can do anything from Ableton Live to Pro Tools Ultimate. I've got Logic Pro 10 and Reaper. So let me know. Let me know what you think of the videos, and I hope to see you next time.